It's important to understand that the 9/11 truth movement is mainstream. We are the mainstream. The scholars, the members of Congress, the former German defense minister, number 3 in Blair's cabinet, members of their parliament are clearly saying that there's something wrong with the official story of 9/11. However you look at 9/11, we know the official story is a fraud from end to end. Hundreds of discrepancies, hundreds of bald-faced lies, things that are so comical it's hard to believe, but then we have to realize that most Americans and people globally just haven't looked at the facts. But more and more in the last almost 5 years have begun to look at it, and that's why in Zogby polls, scientifically conducted in the last few months, we have, 48% of the American people believing the U.S. government was involved in the attacks, and 68% believing there's a cover-up and should be a new investigation. It was a similar Zogby poll, of course, 2 years ago in 2004. So half of the American people, roughly, believe it's an inside job, and the vast majority smell something rotten in the state of Denmark. The evidence, the science, the facts are on our side. And 9/11 is a foundational event for the military-industrial complex that was clearly involved, criminal elements. They are using it to push a police state, the surveillance state, the NSA control grid here in the United States, to federalize our police, to pass the Patriot Act and the reauthorization of the Patriot Act that I challenge you to read, that eviscerates large sections of the Bill of Rights and is totally unconstitutional. And worldwide, countries are using 9/11 and other false flag events that have clearly been staged and other patsy actions and provocateur actions to take freedom worldwide. The United States has gone from the tower on the hill shining light to the world, being the most loved, to now in global polls, respected polling agencies, to being the most hated just in the last 6 years. That's a disgrace. And 9/11 has been the foundation to carry out the policies that have created this sad state of affairs. So we must expose 9/11 because, as the establishment told us, everything changed on 9/11. It's a new world. Give your rights up. Give up liberty for security. When you give up liberty, you don't get security. You get the T word, tyranny, in all caps. We know that the official story is a fraud, and we are here to expose this and to share ideas and to move forward. We absolutely must do this for the future of our civilization. The United States of America is America and was loved because we've never been perfect, but we were the best. This is where the freedom came from. This is where people stood up against kings and queens. This is where black people stood up against oppression. This is the place where we've seen so many struggles for liberty and decency and controlling our own lives. And 9/11 is an attempt by global criminal networks to scare us into submission to their 21st century tyranny. And we say no. Do Arab nations, do Muslim nations, from Malaysia to Afghanistan, to Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, how do they stand to gain? Qui bono, Latin for who benefits. How do they stand to gain from flying jets into buildings and turning the most powerful country with the most awesome military against them? These people aren't stupid. Who has a motive? Who had written in the PDAC documents, Dick Cheney, that we needed a Pearl Harbor catalyzing event? Brzezinski in the Grand Chessboard in '97 said we need a helpful Pearl Harbor event. This is what they said. So we have all this planning, all of this going on. Who gets trillions of dollars of oil? $4+ trillion, and that was at oil price back in 2001. It's almost double that now. $4 trillion in Afghanistan. $4 to $6 trillion in Iraq of discovered reserves there, right under the ground. Hundreds of billions in weapon sales. The war has now cost almost $400 billion. They say we'll be there another decade. That's in the official Pentagon plans. So that'll be well over $1 trillion. If 3.5 years is almost $400 billion, we're talking about almost $1 trillion in weapon sales and Halliburton contracts. This is big money. This is control. But not only that, the PNAC boys told us we'll also use Iraq to build these permanent bases, and that they want civil war there as a pretext to stay and build the bases as a base of operations to then link up, take over Iran and Syria. Then they have Afghanistan. Now they're on China's doorstep. This is about war with China in the final equation. This is about World War III. And there's no reason this needs to happen. We must expose 9/11. It's meant to terrorize the American people and the people of the West into this clash of civilizations that they're engineering. I'd like to introduce our panel now. There's Lieutenant Colonel Bob Bowman. He is the first director of what is known as the Star Wars program, or the Strategic Defense Initiative under Ford and Carter when it was secret. And Lieutenant Colonel Bob Bowman, of course, was the former Director of Advanced Space Programs Development for the U.S. Air Force, and the former United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel with 101 combat missions over Vietnam. And he holds, again, a Ph.D. in aeronautics and nuclear engineering from the California Institute of Technology, and many, many other letters.
Well, if the government has nothing to hide, why is it hiding everything? Why is it confiscated and hidden or destroyed all the evidence? Why is it hiding the videotape of whatever hit the Pentagon? Why is it hiding the audio tapes of the FAA controllers and NORAD? Why is it shipping off to China immediately all the forensic evidence except a little bit, thank God, that Professor Jones was able to get a hold of? The truth about 9/11 is that we don't know the truth about 9/11, and we should. I deserve the truth. You deserve the truth. The families of those killed on 9/11 deserve the truth. The American people deserve the truth, and they're not getting it. One tiny example, why were those planes not intercepted? I'm an old interceptor pilot. I know the drill. I've done it. I know how long it takes. I know the rules. And critics of the government story on 9/11 have said, well, they knew about this and they did nothing. That's not true. If our government had done nothing that day and let normal procedures be followed, those planes, whatever they were, would have been intercepted, the Twin Towers would still be standing, and thousands of dead Americans would still be alive. Now, some in defense of the government say, well, I guess there was a little bit of incompetence on that day. If this massive failure was incompetence, why was there nobody fired, nobody court-martialed, nobody demoted, nobody punished?